Join us every Sunday at 8 a.m. for Silver and Black Today, only on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gilbranson and Matt Gutierrez.
Oh boy, Raider Nation. Is there anything to talk about today? Just a few things.
I'm going to go home. We got nothing.
Yeah, not a very eventful day yesterday.
This is the Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM. And as always, we come to you directly from the nicely chilled Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios. I am Scott Gilbranson, joined by my co-host Matt Gutierrez and our correspondent David Stepanian. God, why do I always want to go with the soft day there? Stepanian.
But you got it this time.
I should know. I know enough Armenians. Woo!
You all right, man?
Long day yesterday.
Yeah.
And, of course, our engineer, Colin Pulicella, is here as well, taking care of us, making sure we stay on time. The doctors are in. We are here for a therapy session for Raiders fans. It was the longest day, as one of the headlines on the silverandblacktoday.com, our website, stated yesterday from our writer Chris Reed. Guys, you have to start with Khalil Mack, and we're gonna spend the first hour talking a majority about this. Matt, we're gonna have let's run down the guests for people because we have we're packed to the gills with this show. Coming up at 8:15, Vinny Bonsignore from The Athletic LA will join us. He is a writer, NFL writer. He writes about the Rams down in Los Angeles, but also writes about the NFL in general and is really tied in with the Raiders situation here in Las Vegas and the Raiders overall. We're going to get his reaction and also juxtapose Pepe. All right?
You're going to struggle today, man.
Hit me. I know. Hit me. With him and the Aaron Donald situation, how the dominoes fell there. Then, at the bottom of the hour, we'll get some Vegas intake on this issue with Gilbert Manzano, who is a Raiders writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He'll come on and tell us as well his views on the 53-man roster. Despite the Khalil Mack talk, we also had roster cuts yesterday, Matt, so we need to address that, and we'll talk about that with Gilbert.
Yeah.
And then, really excited about this one, too. One of the guys who I think yesterday, during the whole uproar in the first few hours of the Khalil Mack trade confirmation and information yesterday, Michael Lombardi, former, of course, Patriots executive, then Raiders player personnel executive, and the former GM of the Cleveland Browns, will join us. He wrote a phenomenal piece that I happen to agree with, I think 98% of, in The Athletic yesterday. We'll talk to him. Then in the second hour, we're going to switch gears a little bit, unless you keep calling us and we can't keep you off the phone. Then we'll maybe call an audible, Matt. Audible, that's your segment. But we're going to do that.
Segue.
That's right. We're going to do that. By the way, call us, 702-889-5978. That's 702-889-5978, and we'll be your therapy session. But then second hour, we're going to go switch to Las Vegas and the Raiders. We're going to talk about the stadium. We're going to talk about the parking plan first with Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Sun, and that's going to be right at 9:15. Matt's not happy with the plan, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
Then at 9:30 in the studio will be Tommy White, who is a member of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board and, of course, runs the Local 872, who is a sponsor of our website podcast and now is going to be a sponsor of this show and Sports Adrenaline as well. So we're
I like Tommy more and more every day.
So he's going to be in to talk about progress on construction of the stadium. You guys have been asking for that for a while, for a more in-depth, and we're going to do that with him. Then we're also going to debate the parking because I think Tommy and I are actually on the same side of parking. Matt's on the other side, so we're going to gang up on Matt a little bit.
Let's go. Bring it.
We're going to Khalil Mack there from the line.
Hey, man. I'm
Matt's
rocking the Khalil Mack jersey today.
He's wearing number 52 in the studio.
I don't know if it's because, I'm feeling a little sad that the guy's gone, or if I just want to troll everybody.
Are you going to cry on me?
No, not even close.
All the estrogen's coming up.
I'm too full, man. I've been eating plates of crow since yesterday morning. So,
well, we're going to talk about that. And you know what? I mean, I think that, boy, with Khalil Mack, we have so much to get to on this stuff. And we're also going to talk about roster cuts because we got to get to that as well. But It's amazing. I just want to say
roster cuts seem like an afterthought, don't they?
That's why
crazy.
Yesterday it came up at 1:00, which was the deadline for the NFL, and I'm like, oh yeah, roster cuts.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about too the reaction to the trade by some of the media has been shocking to me. Not because they've been critical. I expected that, and that's fair. Like you can be very critical of this deal, as we'll hear as we speak to folks this morning, but. Some of them are acting like this was a personal jab at them. Like we have members of the media switching out their avatar on Twitter to Khalil Mack's picture.
Turn it down, man.
Yeah, it's really weird. And so we'll talk. I'm going to ask maybe Vinny about that. It might make him a little uncomfortable. But I'll ask him. Also ask Michael Lombardi about that as well, because it's strange to me that these journalists who are objective and they're all. And I'm not going to name names, but there's 3 or 4 of them who are great writers, good folks, and I just don't understand the reaction. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But we want to know what you think of Khalil Mack. Oh, by the way, we are not streaming on video today because we don't want Matt's tears to be visible.
Yeah, that's what it is
on the air. But we're not streaming on this weekend, the holiday weekend. We took the time off to do that. But we are going to run through the rest of the show. So make sure you do that. Again, guests throughout. Vinny Bonsignore, The Athletic, Gilbert Manzano from the RJ. We have Michael Lombardi, former GM of the Browns and player personnel of the Raiders, and then Mick Akers and Tommy White are there.
Is this one of those profile pics you were talking about?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Nameless, but
yes, nameless.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know.
Salty,
but anyway,
salty.
There was something put forward, an idea of why it's happening, and we'll talk about that later. But what we want to do, too, is before we get to your calls and before we get to our guests, in addition to Khalil Mack being traded, and again, if you were in a cave for the last day, the Raiders trade Khalil Mack to the Chicago Bears for a first-round selection in 2019 and 20. They also get a sixth-round, and a third. They get a sixth-round selection next year, and then they get a third-round pick in 2020. The Raiders also shipped, and I know, Matt, I agree with you on this one, the Raiders gave the Bears a second-round pick.
That one makes me more angry than anything. Not that losing Mack doesn't make me angry, but, so you get back a third-round pick, but you gave up a second-round pick, so that's a wash. And you actually come out on the bad end of that deal. So what you got in return for the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year, guy coming into his prime at only 27 years old, widely considered the best defensive player in the NFL currently. What you got in return were 2 first-rounders and a 6th-rounder. That's it. That's what. And that's essentially what you gave up.
And I think
you got in return. I don't like the return.
Right.
And I don't like the return. And you had Khalil Mack for the next 3 years if you wanted him.
Yes. And we're going to
his go ahead.
His contract. No, you're right. You had him this year, and then you can tag him for 2.
You had the 5th-year option this year, 13-5.
Right.
Tag him for the next 2. So you could play with this young nucleus that you have, these young defenders that you brought in, this revamped defense, deeper defense, new offensive system with Jon Gruden, new defensive scheme with Paul Gunther. You had Mack in there for the next 3 years where he couldn't go anywhere else. And instead I think it's a bit of a knee jerk.
There's something else going on.
Exactly.
And I think we will ask Vinny and also Michael Lombardi, who I'm really interested to hear from too, because he was a GM. Okay, before we get out of this segment and get to phone calls and our guests, we want to first also get you up to date on the 53-man roster cuts yesterday. Our own David Stepanian has this report for you.
Every year, the preseason leads into cut-down day, where the Raiders had to cut down their roster to 53 players. Some surprising names didn't make the cut for this season, including E.J. Manuel, who just completed 18 for 22 passes for 255 yards and 3 TDs in a Thursday night win against the Seahawks. This doesn't come totally unexpected. After the win, coach Jon Gruden was asked if the backup QB was on the roster during the game, to which Gruden simply replied, "I don't know." A little less surprising, Connor Cook was let go after completing 26 out of 51 passes for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an INT. Both Cook and Manuel will be replaced by former Heisman runner-up A.J. McCarron, who was traded from Buffalo for a 5th-round pick after completing 23 out of 50 for 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 INTs in the preseason. The Raiders also cut wide receiver Martavis Bryant, who has a suspension looming after another failed drug test. He caught 2 passes for 32 yards during the preseason. The Raiders traded their 2018 third-round pick to the Steelers back in April for the Clemson alum. Another name to be left off that fans may recognize was Marcell Aitman. The receiver caught 7 passes for 92 yards in his last 2 games in the preseason. Chris Warren, who led the league with 292 rushing yards in the preseason, will require knee surgery, and joins Eddie Pinheiro on the injured reserve. Neither of them will be eligible to play this season. Shalik Calhoun and Trayvon Hester made the cut, who gave insight as to what the Raiders' defense may look like moving forward in a world without Khalil Mack. Wide receiver Keon Hatcher arguably saved his spot as he went off for 8 receptions for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win against the Seahawks. This will be the roster heading into a Week 1 Monday night showdown against the Super Bowl favorite LA Rams. For Silver and Black Today, I'm David Stepanian.
All right, young David, thank you, man. So the couple things that jump out there before we go to a break here. One was Marcell Aitman. We're all crying in our coffee this morning over that. We really like that kid. But also, Chris Warren III. I had no idea he had an injury, and you just enlightened us on something, because I said, when did he get hurt in the last game? And you said?
Apparently, the entire preseason he's been playing with this knee injury. So
and he led the league in rushing.
Yeah, and he led the league. So it's something that's, I guess, been bothering him throughout the preseason, and he has to get surgery, and so he's going to miss the whole season.
Wow.
But really,
it's got to be. I mean, I would say meniscus.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's any kind of ligament damage. I'm pretty familiar with meniscus tears myself. I would assume that's what it was, but it's unfortunate, man. I like that kid a lot.
I feel like his roster spot was safe regardless, even though they placed him on the IR.
And remember, he's on IR. If he gets a surgery, he rehabs, and they have another injury, they can actually, that's the only way he could come off of IR. Wow, first segment, we are going to be talking next to Vinny Bonsignore from The Athletic Los Angeles about the Khalil Mack trade. Call us 702-889-5978. Also, don't forget you can stream this show on the radio.com app. It's killer. This is a Silver and Black Today therapy session today. We'll be back right after this break here on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
All right, Raider Nation, the day after, the doctors are in. We got 3 here, myself, Matt Gutierrez, and David Stepanian is here. And then now we're going to go out on the TroyanoVegasLaw.com newsmaker line, and we're going to bring in one of our favorite guys in the business, and that's Vinny Bonsignore from The Athletic Los Angeles. Vinny, how are you, my man?
I'm good. How are you guys? It's been a crazy last 48 hours, huh?
Well, yes.
A little bit.
I mean, I think for those folks that listen to us, and they're clearly part of Raider Nation, but also for you covering the Rams and the Aaron Donald situation the day before, the last 2 days have been just insane when it comes to salaries for defensive players in the NFL. Now, yesterday, I appreciated what you were saying in public, mostly via Twitter, around the Khalil Mack situation and the trade. Of course, the reaction from fans and the vitriol directed at Jon Gruden, Reggie McKenzie, Mark Davis. You were to expect some of that because fans are fans and they don't necessarily think of the NFL as a business usually. But, Vinny, when you look at this trade overall, let's not even get to the question yet around value that they received in return for Khalil Mack. But leading up to this, Khalil Mack gets a contract with the Bears for $23 million now after the trade. Tell us your view on why this happened and why the Raiders would trade off arguably their best player.
Well, first of all, for anyone who didn't think that the Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack deals were kind of linked together, I think you got your answer over the last 48 hours. I always believed that Mack was in a better position to wait out Aaron Donald. Khalil stood to make $14 million this year against Aaron Donald's $7 million. So if I'm Khalil Mack, I'm waiting for that guy to get his contract and then saying, okay, that's the basis for what I want now, and a little bit more, by the way. So those two contracts were always linked, and I think that, from the Raiders' perspective, they didn't wake up deciding that, we're a better off team without Khalil Mack. That's far from it, and it was an emotional day yesterday up in Oakland, and And this was not something that they wanted to do necessarily. They didn't want to lose Khalil Mack. Let's be, I'd have to question your intelligence if you felt like that's what they decided, that we're a better team without Khalil Mack. It's not the case. What they felt like was that we're hopefully better off without Khalil Mack at that number, and what that would have done to our salary cap moving forward with a roster that, frankly, has a lot of holes. I know that it's easy to compare the Aaron Donald situation with the Khalil Mack situation, the Rams situation with the Raiders situation. But if you look at the Rams, their roster is just better right now. They're in a better position right now with their young quarterback, who's still on a rookie deal, with their star running back line locked up, with one of their star wide receivers locked up, and their three receivers under contract for about the next 4 years, with Michael Brockers locked up, with a young quarterback in Marcus Peters who they want to take care of already on the roster. Their roster is just in a different place to be able to say, okay, we like Aaron Donald and we're fine paying him that money because we have the infrastructure around him already in place. We don't have uncertainty that the Raiders do. So it's two different situations roster-wise. It's not, it's easy to say that's the same thing but it's not. Their rosters are in completely different places right now. And the Raiders made their decision, and I understand it. It was a hard decision. It was an emotional decision. It makes people mad. I get that. But they decided this is the best approach for our team moving forward for the long range and not just the short range.
Hey, Vinny, Matt here. I think my biggest frustration with this, and obviously losing Mack, you don't want to see that happen because he is so good, but it's the return, I think, that is more frustrating than anything else, because you look at the fact that they gave up a second-round pick along with Mack. You can wash the third round they got back there. And then they gave up a fifth to bring in A.J. McCarron, so that kind of washes out the sixth round that they're getting back. So basically what they gave up was Khalil Mack, the best defensive player in the league, for 2 first-round picks, when they could have had him locked up with the fifth-year option that they have him under now and then franchise him for the next 2 years. He could have been around for the next 3 seasons as a Raider as this team builds and gets ready to move to Vegas. It seems on the outside looking in that there was a little more to this, that maybe we keep hearing about, Gruden's ego and the way he's running things. Maybe he's a little salty that he wasn't in camp. Maybe it was just a case of, if you're not going to be willing to be here, we're gonna show you the door.
Well, I mean, yes, you could have done all of those things, but number one, you're going to have a really unhappy player. Number two, there's no guarantees that Khalil Mack comes in this year under those circumstances. He may just continue to force the issue to try to get into a better situation where he's going to, have his contract demands met. Number two, you could take that approach, obviously, but in 3 years he's going to walk away most likely because he's not going to be happy under those circumstances, and you get nothing for that. So the return is 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, plus the the salary cap space that you can now, if you're the Raiders, spread it around among a number of different players rather than just one player. Now, this isn't an ideal situation. They did not want it to come to this point or to get to this point, but because of circumstance, because a player who was, your equivalent, maybe even a little bit better, who was drafted behind you in the same exact draft, facing the same exact contract type of a situation, only he had more urgency to get something done because he was making half of what you were making, put you, the player, in a position to just wait it out, and then, once that deal got done, demand that that your deal gets topped, and that's what changed everything. I mean, the Raiders were fine with paying Khalil Mack as the highest paid defensive player of all time, going over the $20 million a year threshold, and giving him what they felt was a fair contract. But when Donald signed, and it changed the landscape of defensive players into quarterback-type money and quarterback-type guaranteed money, that's when the Raiders said, that's too much for us at this point. We're not willing to do that. And that's, pretty much how it went down. So return was the best return that they were going to get. And I think that it's better off to get something like that, which is not a little bit. 2 first-round picks. We don't know what the Bears are going to be. Those could be good draft picks. So, that's what the going rate was. I don't know how you could expect anything more really under those circumstances.
Again, we're talking to Vinny Bonsignore from The Athletic Los Angeles about the Khalil Mack trade. Now, what you said there, Vinny, in your last statement was around salary cap. And I think this is where it's really hard, and I understand I fully understand fans' reaction to something like this. But when you're looking at the long-term health of your franchise and your team, a team, by the way, that went 6-10 last year, and the year before had 12 wins that were really inflated wins. We can talk about that later, but really was not a true 12-4 season in my book, okay? This team has had trouble for the last 16 years, okay? So you have to now develop. They were in salary cap hell when Reggie McKenzie got there. He turned it around. He got them more healthy. So now you're in a situation where you still have holes on this team. A lot of people are looking at this team. I think they're expecting too much out of it. I always said it's a transition year. You got holes on the roster that you need to fill. This was much more. A lot of the narrative, especially for the folks that are still upset about the team leaving Oakland, has been Mark Davis can't afford this, Mark Davis can't afford that. It's a tired narrative. And really, Vinny, this was not about not affording the player. This was choosing not to pay the player.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, whether you agree or disagree with what the Raiders did, one thing that they can, walk away from is that it was their decision. They weren't. This wasn't a situation where Khalil Mack said, "I don't want to play for you, so trade me." This isn't a case where they didn't have the money; they did. This isn't a case where their salary cap, was so out of whack that they couldn't do it. They could have if they wanted to. It was their decision. That's why it was a football decision. And there's nothing else going on. It's not Jon Gruden's, ego. It's not that there's cash flow problems. It's not that they mess up their salary cap. They just decided that for the future of their franchise, considering the holes that you mentioned on their roster, they're being honest about themselves in that regard. As of right now, this minute, we're better off with the money that we're going to save in terms of being able to spread it around a little bit more, the draft capital that we're going to get. So this is a move that we're going to make for the long range of our long-range future of our franchise. It wasn't something that they were forced into.
Vinny, it seems like, obviously, fan reaction is to be expected. Raider Nation's pretty knee-jerky when it comes to things like this overall, but the reaction from media, especially up north in the Bay Area, has been, it almost seems like it's become personal. Like they take it as a personal offense that Mack is gone. Does that speak more to the player or more to, man, there's only a couple years left. We want to see this team win now, and it doesn't look like they're going to.
Probably a little bit of both, and I keep reiterating this. It's not like this was an easy decision,
right?
And again, it's not like the Raiders just decided, hey, we're better off without Khalil Mack. There's a lot of nuance that went into this in context and perspective, and as Scott mentioned, salary cap implications for the long haul, and how do you go about building the best, most balanced football team, and can you do that when you have so many holes and you're devoting now $23 million? It was never about, $20 million or $21 million. It was always going to be more than what Aaron Donald got. And Aaron Donald, we all know, was going to get an incredible amount of money. He made history with his deal, and, 24 hours later, and it was always going to happen this way, Khalil Mack was going to make history as well because he was the next in line, even though he might not be the better player. Yeah. But just the way the circumstances worked out, that was how it was always going to work out. And I understand the anger up there. Obviously, it's never a good thing when you have to trade your best football player or best player, period, in a trade like this. So it is emotional, and it was emotional for the team and the coaches and the front office. This isn't the ideal situation, but this is making the most.
It's reality, though, right?
That situation.
Yeah, it's reality. It's reality. So, exactly. And really, time is the only true judge of how this will go down. So we'll see how that goes. Vinny, I want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to have you on next week to talk about the Rams game as well. So I want to appreciate.
We're going to be talking about real games,
real football, man.
Like that.
That's right. Again, Vinny, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Vinny Bonsignore from. All right, you too, buddy. Vinny Bonsignore from the Athletic Los Angeles with his view of the Khalil Mack trade. Vinny's really well connected, great writer, great sources, so we appreciate his look into that. Next, after the break, we're going to be talking to Gilbert Manzano from the Las Vegas Review-Journal about the Mack trade and also the Raiders roster cuts. We'll be back just after this message.
This portion of Silver and Black Today is powered by the law office of Michael Troiano.
This is Cliff Branch, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time Pro Bowl, and you listen to the Silver and Black Show.
All right, we're back, Silver and Black today, and the Raiders did not trade Cliff Branch.
Yeah, good thing, too.
Which is good.
Got a few rings.
Just a few. All right, we're heading out again on the TrianoVegasLaw.com newsmaker line, and we bring in now Gilbert Manzano from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Gilbert, did you do anything yesterday?
Yeah, there was a lot going on and with the Raiders, but I also got to hang out with Marshawn Lynch for a little bit, so that was kind of different.
I saw that. The Beast Mode store opened at Town Square in Las Vegas, and some of the video I saw, and of course your reporting on it was funny. I mean, he was in a good mood. He even got asked about the trade and gave the answer, hey, it's a business. I've been traded. I've retired, all that kind of stuff. That was pretty good. So now, Gilbert, the trade of Khalil Mack, of course, is occupying everybody's mind as well. You know, what are you hearing from your folks up there? I mean, the organization is clearly not by choice, but in a bunker now with the fan base, at least in the northern part of California. How's the mood there from people you've talked to about a tough decision like this?
You know, when Reggie McKenzie said yesterday that they did not want to trade him, this kind of came, within the last, 24 hours or 48 hours. I believe McKenzie. This came out of nowhere. Just from talking to people, hearing what people were reporting, was just seeing and kind of getting the feel. This kind of came out of left field, especially the Bears. Nobody was talking about the Bears. Everybody was saying maybe the Packers or the Jets, and then it kind of just felt like just rumors. Trade because it's a holdout, but it didn't really feel real until Ian Rappaport said, a couple of days ago that the Raiders are really considering trading Khalil Mack. When the Raiders started considering and listening to the offer, that's when it got real. I think the whole Aaron Donald, guaranteed money of $87 million, really kind of told the Raiders, maybe they can't do this, maybe it's not right to kind of tie up the salary cap, but Derek Carr and Khalil Mack, and who knows about the money situation with Mark Davis. But there was so much going on, and just I guess they felt the need to kind of get a deal done right away. I thought maybe they could have waited, especially with the fifth-year option. You got the franchise tags. You want to wait around for the draft time. But I guess Jon Gruden wanted to, kind of put an end to the whole, I guess, dilemma and situation and drama with Khalil Mack. So here we are with no Khalil Mack with the Raiders.
Gilbert, Matt here. What was your personal sense being around the team and just listening to people talk and trying to gather as much information as you possibly could? Was there ever a point leading up to it where you before the Rappaport thing came out where you thought, yeah, man, this could really happen, or were you just there's no way? Like most of us, I think out there, this is all rumors. There's no way that they're going to trade Mack.
I thought it was a no-way situation. Also, there's two positions in football you don't trade when you have a guy in the prime and an elite status like Khalil Mack. It's quarterback and pass rusher. You do not trade those guys in the NFL. I think the Raiders were going to do it. And here we are. It happened. And, sometimes these rare occasions happen. I don't get the sense of why the urgency right now with Khalil Mack. Why not wait for the regular season, see if he actually is going to miss games. Khalil Mack is the type of player who does not like to miss games. He wants to play out there all the time. So you could have put that to the test. Maybe you try to mend fences in the next year. But I guess again, Gruden did not want to do that. But yeah, I am very shocked that they actually got to trade with Khalil Mack. But I still think it's a win-win trade. And it's kind of rare to do sometimes that both sides are even. 2 first-round picks it's a big haul. First-round picks are very valuable. I mentioned quarterbacks and pass rushers being the top. I think next in line is first-round picks. First-round picks are very valuable in football. To have 2 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts to kind of rebuild this defense, I think that comes out pretty good for the Raiders.
Hey, Vinny, David Stepanian here. So we've heard a lot about what Raiders fans are experiencing and how they feel. What about Bears fans? Have you heard anything from how the Chicago fans are reacting to this trade and what this does for the Bears defense, if this makes them any sort of a contender for the playoffs? I know not a lot of people were expecting them to be very good this season. What does this mean to the fans of the Bears and that team in general?
And you got to think they're very excited for Chicago, to get a premier, probably the best edge rusher in the NFL. Any fan base will be pumped to have Khalil Mack. So I'm guessing Chicago was pretty excited yesterday. But for a team perspective, I thought they were very good up top already in the front seven, with Leonard Floyd, and you got Roquan Smith there, your rookie, Trevathan, and then you had a Vic Fangio, who was a good coordinator. So I thought they were already on their way up. And now with Khalil Mack, this could be one of the best front sevens in football. I don't know if the Bears are a playoff team just yet, especially with Mitchell Trubisky, still kind of trying to figure out things at quarterback. So maybe the Raiders might get a good pick for the 2019 draft. But I think they're on the rise, and I think it was a bold move for Ryan Pace to go all in, and I think it's going to pay off for them.
All right, we're talking to Gilbert Manzano with the Las Vegas Review-Journal, writes on the Raiders, among other things. Now, Gilbert, I want to get your thoughts, too, for the rest of this segment on the story that kind of got lost because of the Mack trade, and that, of course, was the cut down to 53-man on the roster. Yeah. And a couple of guys, Martavis Bryant, I don't think anyone was surprised about that. In fact, your coworker over at the RJ, Michael Gelkin, got a lot of heat back in June when he said that Martavis Bryant was facing another suspension. And lo and behold, we find out yesterday that the main reason the Raiders parted ways with him, despite giving up a third-round draft pick, was because of another looming drug suspension.
Yeah, props to Michael for being on top of this story since June. I know he got a lot of heat for it, but I did see a lot of Raider fans going on Twitter to apologize to Michael, saying, sorry for doubting you. So that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, Michael's kind of, been talking to me about the situation, and he felt very confident. I believed him. I know he has some of the best sources in football. He's a great reporter. So it was good to see that kind of, not good for Martavis Bryant, but good for Michael's reporting. But yeah, on the whole, Martavis Bryant, front, it was kind of a disaster there to give up a third-round pick. That's pretty high value. And Jon Gruden really wanted to, improve that vertical game, the deep passing. And now you don't have it with Martavis Bryant. They couldn't wait on him about the whole looming suspension, so they kind of just said, forget this whole experiment. And, what do you do now, with the wide receiver? This really puts a lot of pressure on Amari Cooper to kind of be that outside guy. He's never really done it. He's a better route runner, slot guy. But now you don't really have it. Maybe you hope that maybe what Keon Hatcher did in that final preseason game is not a fluke and he could be a vertical threat. But all of a sudden the Raiders are kind of shorthanded wide receiver. But you guys mentioned it was such a wild day yesterday. There's so many things we could pick apart from the roster sets, but it looks like a brand new team today.
You stay with the receivers, Eric. You look at Marcel Aitman; he was cut, which not a huge vertical threat as far as speed goes, but he's a 6'4" body. That's a big kid. And when you mentioned Hatcher did a lot of his work the other night out of the slot position. So I don't know if that's a guy that you can move to the outside, if that's going to be his natural fit. I think the most unfortunate part about this is how excited everybody was to see Cooper play out of that slot position, because the most damage he did last season against Kansas City was from the slot, and now it looks like you may have to move him back outside, which I think really hampers this offense.
Yeah, it's not a strength for Amari Cooper. Like you said, he had that Chiefs game in the slot last year where he went off for one of the biggest days in fantasy for fantasy football fans there. But maybe, Johnny Holton's kind of shown flashes. It seems like every time Johnny Holton gets a one catch per game, is usually for like 30, 40 yards. So he's kind of shown flashes for that. Who knows about, like we mentioned, Keon Hatcher. Jordan Nelson is at least a good red zone target, so he could be that big body at least there. But, but also, too, Derek Carr's strength is not really the deep ball. He's kind of struggled with having that nice touch with the deep ball. Maybe Jon Gruden goes with these quick passes, quick slants, using Jalen Richard as a
Jared Cook.
We
forget about Jared Cook in that offense. Yeah,
we really forget about the tight end. He has a bunch of them, and Jared Cook's a good tight end. But yeah, maybe using running backs more for these short passes that dink and dunk. We don't know, but you got to adjust sometimes on the fly, and we'll see how Jon Gruden's play calling will be come September 10th.
Now, Gilbert, one question. You mentioned Derek Carr. We got about a minute left. You mentioned Derek Carr. Does this trade with Mack gone, not besides the fact that they were good friends, does this put more pressure on him because on the offensive side of the ball, too, because they're just going to have some uncertainty, even though they have younger players that are looking good so far?
Yeah, no, they essentially chose to pay Derek Carr. He is the franchise guy. He is their best player now, so he has to play like that. So I think there is more pressure. And sometimes, we're saying that the wide receiver core is a little, down right now, but sometimes the best quarterbacks in the league make these receivers much better. So I want to see Derek Carr come to that status where he's getting, guys where you never, catching a good amount of balls each game. So it's up to Derek Carr to step up. I think he's going to get a lot of responsibility at the line of scrimmage when it comes to just play calling on his own, audibles. He's going to have a lot on his plate to read the defenses. So I think this could be a big year for Derek Carr. If he wants to prove that he's still – remember 2016, he was the MVP candidate. If he wants to prove he's still that same guy, this is a year. I know it sucks to lose probably his best friend on the team in Khalil Mack for Derek Carr, but he knows the business. And he committed to the Raiders. They committed to him, so it's time to kind of prove the franchise right.
Gilbert Manzano from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Gilbert, thanks, man. We'll talk to you next time. We really appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you, guys. Fun. Always a pleasure with you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Gilbert Manzano, Las Vegas Review-Journal Sports, giving his take on not only the Mack trade, but also on the 53-man roster cutdowns. When we come back, I'm really excited about this interview. We're going to be joined by Michael Lombardi, of course. Michael was a longtime player personnel in the league with the Raiders, Eagles, Browns, and of course he was a general manager of the Browns for a few years. We'll talk to him about the Mack trade. He had a great take on it. You're listening to CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
CBS Sports Radio. This portion of Silver and Black Today is powered by the law office of Michael Troiano. Help us talk the Silver and Black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio AM here at 1140 AM here in Las Vegas. Of course, the companion to the silverandblacktoday.com website. Folks, we are here. We are continuing our therapy session on the Mack trade. And now we're going to I'm really excited about this interview. I want to read first, and that is with Michael Lombardi. Michael, of course, longtime personnel director and GM in the NFL, including with the Raiders for almost 10 years, I believe. And then also, Michael, how you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Also, reading up on you, because I know a lot about you, but at the same time, I like to go deeper. You were the recruiting coordinator with Harvey Hyde, correct, at UNLV?
Yeah, it's my first job in football. I met Coach Hyde at a coaching clinic in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and he hired me in 1981 as an unpaid assistant. I got all the Burger King coupons and all the Holiday Inn when there was a Holiday Inn there on the Strip. I got the buffet line tickets, and I started my learning football at that point. And we had Randall Cunningham was on the team at that time, and eventually recruited Ickey Woods and George Thomas and a bunch of other good players.
That's very cool. I love that Las Vegas connection. But of course, we're here to talk about the Raiders and what happened yesterday. And within a few hours of the trade kind of coming down and news of it happening, you wrote a piece on The Athletic, which really resonated with me, and I thought was great because it came not only with a level head, but it also came from someone who has experience dealing with contracts and dealing with players in the leagues, within the league. And I just want to read a couple things here that you wrote and then talk about it, which is you said, quote, Gruden's decision to trade Khalil Mack was more about his cap philosophy and how to allocate cap dollars than it was about cash flow. Then you said Gruden isn't alone among coaches and GMs in the league to subscribe to that philosophy and mention Bill Belichick. And you say Belichick would never pay Mack that kind of money, and it's about the quality of the overall team versus outweighing the needs of the individuals. Now, of course, a lot of Raider fans don't want to hear that today, Michael, but in that situation, sitting in that chair like Reggie McKenzie and then, of course, Jon Gruden, when you have a player like Mack holding out and you have a situation like this where the money gets astronomical after the Aaron Donald deal gets done, talk about how that situation evolves into what happened yesterday.
Well, I think I think Mack's a really good player. But, Mack was on the team in 2015 when he had 15 sacks, and the Raiders couldn't win more than 6 games, I think. And then the year they won 12 games, most of them kind of on the last second play, and he had 10.5 sacks. They gave up 413 points of defense.
Wow.
I love Mack. I think Mack's a really good player, but I think those numbers tell you that it isn't about just one player. I mean, the thing that boggles my mind is, look, we're not basketball. We're not LeBron James can carry a bad Cleveland Cavaliers team to the conference finals. He can't carry them to the NBA finals. I mean, you need a lot of good players to win in the NFL. And when you give one player in the 20 millions and it doesn't play quarterback, it becomes a little problematic for you. And I think you have to take the approach, look, I want depth. I want as many guys making, 4 or 5 million. I'll take 5 guys making $5 million and have $25 million in them, and one guy making $25 million. And it's the team concept, and that's why Belichick, I don't have to say in a hypothesis that Belichick wouldn't have done it. He's already proven it. He traded Chandler Jones, who's as good a rusher, had 16 sacks last year. I mean, the guy can rush the passer just like Mack can, and traded him for a second-round pick and a player because he didn't want to pay him well below the $20 million mark, which Chandler ended up getting. So I just think it's a philosophy. Now, I think this, and I think this is real important for Raider fans. I think they have to be John's got to be dedicated and disciplined to the philosophy. If he turns around and gives Amari Cooper up to 18, 19 million, then I'm going to say, wait a minute, that's not the right thing to do, because Bill Walsh taught me this years ago. The wide receiver position is the last position you fix on your team. And so to me, if he does that and didn't pay Mack, it's hard to defend him. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here and think he's operating under the Belichick principles, but he's got to prove he can be disciplined in it.
Mike, good to talk to you here. This is Matt Gutierrez. So when do we see this kind of fluid money situation change? Because you don't have to go back that far. Look at guys like Jamarcus Russell when these first round picks were coming out, holding out for more money, getting these ridiculous guaranteed contracts or guaranteed money in their contracts, and then all of that changed and they went into more of a slotted type of thing where, if you're this pick, you're going to make this much. If you're this pick, you're going to make this much. Now we're seeing these ridiculous contracts, Mack with $90 million guaranteed. When are we going to see this revert kind of to the other side where you kind of set a lower floor?
Well, I think this, the Russell contract was a rookie contract, and that back then rookies always held out. Now rookies don't hold out. Other than Roquan Smith this year, there was no real holdout, and that was over language. It wasn't over money. It was over language of the new rule about how if he got suspended for helmet to helmet. When you're looking now, I think the system has been created to help players elevate. The franchise number helps people elevate. If Bruce Allen didn't play hardball with Kirk Cousins and put himself and checkmate himself in Washington into a horrendous deal for 2 years in a row, Cousins wouldn't have been able to command $28 million. But because he was being unreasonable, all of a sudden Cousins 2 years got him a huge deal, all guaranteed for 3 seasons. Now, how did that help? It helped benefit Jimmy Garoppolo. It helped benefit Alex Smith. It helped benefit Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan. All those guys benefited, and that's part of the system, Matt, that's going on right now. Is the system is entitled veteran players to get paid, and they should get paid. And teams that have a ton of cap room, the Bears are able to pay Mack this number because they don't have a quarterback making $20 million. They have a quarterback on a rookie deal. The Cowboys are letting Dak Prescott's precious years of contracts slip away into oblivion because they're eventually going to have to pay him. The Rams are taking advantage of Jared Goff's rookie contract, and they're, as I wrote in my report, they should have Visa American Express on their jerseys because all they're doing is going for 2 years of buying into the future. So I think the system works, even though it looks like holdouts. They're different holdouts than they were years ago.
Again, we're talking to Michael Lombardi, longtime NFL personnel GM with the Browns, Raiders, and others. Now, Michael, we have about a minute left with you. A lot of folks, especially in Raider Nation, comparing the situation with Mack and the Raiders because of the Carr contract and his contract to that of the Rams. You also remind people that with the Rams, they are really playing on borrowed money. It's a different situation.
It really is way different. I mean, look, everybody in the league knows the Rams can't sustain it. I mean, they're going to be over $25 million over the cash over their cap. And whenever you go cash over cap, it has to come back on you the next year. So what the Rams are doing right now, they're going to have 4 players making $100 million next year. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. So you're going to have to figure out a way to do it, and that doesn't count Goff's contract. So I think, look, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because they got to sell PSLs, they got to put people in the seats, and they got to encourage the Los Angeles market that's still really a Raider market into becoming a Ram market.
That's right. Michael, well, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time. Make sure you go subscribe to The Athletic where you can read Michael Lombardi. And, Michael, we hope to have you on later in the season. We'll see how things go with the Raiders and the rest of the NFL. Thanks again for your time on Sunday.
Thank you.
All right, Michael Lombardi, former GM of the Cleveland Browns and player personnel director for the Raiders, as well as being in the league for a long, long time. And, as we found out, a recruiting coordinator at UNLV. All right, when we come back here on the silverandblacktoday.com, we'll reset. We'll hear your opinion. Call us 702-889-5978, CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbranson and Matt Gutierrez.
Oh, Nelly. Remember that one?
Wow, yeah.
Keith Jackson. I miss Keith Jackson. College football started yesterday, but we're talking pro football because we are the Silver and Black today. And
are we looking live?
We are.
You are looking live. Well, come on, we'll keep it Raiders
Brent
thing.
Musburger, right? Yeah. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m., emanating from the City of Lights, the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're coming to you from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios.
I drove in last night from L.A.
Yes, you had the sports day in L.A. yesterday.
I had sports day in L.A. It was fun. I don't know what it is. When you come over that hill and you see the lights, I was only gone for 19 hours. It's just, I love it. I love coming home. I love this city, man.
It's sort of, and this won't be taken positive because it's technically not, but sort of. And that is, it's like nicotine. It gets in your blood. It's hard to get it out.
It is, man.
You have to stop cold turkey.
City's infectious.
I moved away for 14 years and came back. That's how much it was still a part of me. We are here talking, of course, about the Khalil Mack trade and about roster cuts. Want to thank again Michael Lombardi, former GM of the Cleveland Browns and player personnel executive for the Raiders, who came on last segment, really gave us, I think, a view of the deal that is from a business side and from someone who's had to negotiate contracts, make tough decisions as well. So we appreciate that. Also, we're getting a lot of folks, because we're not on video today. We usually get a lot of chat in video, but because we're not on video today, we're getting them via Twitter and getting some good questions here for folks. And so we want to get to some of those as well, which are outside the insults at Reggie and Gruden.
God.
We had a question. Victor said, do you see any first-round draft picks in the next 2 years that could be close to Mack? And I said no, because you can't compare an unproven commodity to a proven commodity. It's just not an apples to apples.
Not only that, where are you drafting next season?
You don't know.
You don't know. Where are you drafting in 2020?
Projections.
You don't know.
Projections, and they can be wrong, of course. Projections have the Bears right now about 7.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You could have, because you have your own first-round picks, along with the Bears' first-round picks the next 2 seasons, you could draft 1 and 2. You could draft 3 and 4 in both of those.
Or
you
17
could draft,
and 18.
You could draft 2 and 30. You have no idea where those picks are going to be. So projection-wise, it's really not even worth your time at this point to try to figure out who the Raiders are going to take in the draft, because you just don't know where you're going to be. And no, there is no Khalil Mack. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a stud pass rusher out there that's going to come in and do great things in the NFL.
We talked about Bosa, right?
But you're not going to get a guy who in the same season is an all-pro at defensive end and outside linebacker. It's just not going to happen. There's only one of those guys, and he's now a Bear.
That's right. Proven commodity, the NFL is always more valuable than potential. Now, we had another listener who's got a GMNJ77. I love some of these Twitter handles. I'm sure you have your reasons for having that one, but it's hard to read.
Random letters and numbers.
It says, Scott, listening on the app, which we appreciate. Again, yes, the radio.com app. You can listen to us anywhere you are in the world. How does Gruden address the financial motivations for his players, especially young guys looking to make a name for themselves and eventually want the bigger deal? He said he wants grinders and players. That's what he had. No question that Khalil Mack was a grinder and a player, but it's a business decision.
He's also a superstar grinder and player that needs to be paid as such. So that's different than,
a young
Griff
guy
Whalen
trying to make it. Yeah.
Grinder, great player, not great, but a serviceable player that's going to come in and do the job. is never going to command any type of salary like that. It's
Correct.
It's completely different.
Or even, Amari Cooper, to Michael Lombardi's point about receivers and not paying receivers a ton of money, and how it would be hypocritical if they gave Cooper $18 million after not giving Mack 20-something.
I tell you what, man,
we'll
looking
see what
at
happens.
this situation, don't go out and buy number 89 jerseys.
No, I wouldn't.
That's risky at this point.
But I think motivation for players, I don't think they look at the Mack situation and say, well, geez, I can't make as much money as I possibly can make playing for the Raiders. I don't necessarily think that's true. But if you subscribe to what Michael Lombardi said about Jon Gruden's philosophy, if it is indeed his philosophy, and it's much closer to what the Patriots have done, and I know how Raiders fans feel about the Patriots. I get it, okay? But have they not won? Have they not been really, in my view, the only dynasty in the NFL in the last 15 years?
Yeah.
Right?
How do you
argue with it?
As much as
it's like I hate the Yankees, but I respect them.
Can't stand the Patriots. How do you argue with the success?
You can't.
Well, they do cheat. They're cheaters too. That helps. Let's be honest. But as far as philosophy goes, it's hard to argue that point.
Well,
they keep building.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing that I see with this too is we had I had some guy yesterday saying that he was going to sue the Raiders because he just bought a Khalil Mack jersey, which is hysterical. But the other thing is you have to now, and David, you're a long time, grew up a Raiders fan. You have to now, and I'm not just talking about jerseys, but I'm saying attachment to players. With the way the Raiders are going now and the system they want to build, which is a winning system about winning Super Bowls, from what they say, you can't get too attached to a player because if Amari Cooper comes out and has an amazing year this year and then holds out because he wants $18 million, guess what's going to happen to Amari Cooper? He's going to be on the same train that Khalil Mack was on.
Yeah, look, I don't know how many times this can be said, is that the NFL is a business first and foremost, and it is a little risky buying jerseys for current players, as our good friend Matt can tell you. You keep investing in jerseys, and it's not a great deal. But no, when you're so reliant on one single player, it puts you at somewhat of a disadvantage. But I think I choose to trust what the Raiders are doing because really, what can you do? It's already been done.
Well,
yeah, it's done.
That's a good point.
Mack is traded. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Yeah.
There's only one Khalil Mack in the league.
Well,
and I was really disappointed. But
everybody was disappointed. But at the same time, one of the lessons in life, if you're younger out there, because as I approach 50, I have some miles and tread wear, is you can't get crazy over things you have no control over. If you do, you make yourself miserable. And in a situation like this, I don't care if you're the most diehard Raider fan in the entire world. It happened. It's over with. So now you got to start to think to yourself, how is this going to go? And our good friend Ed Marshall up in Alaska is listening, and he asked the question, ask people what the Patriots pay their players, right? And we're talking about the Patriots here in the system. It's true. It's true. Do they win without paying a guy $23 million to rush the passer? The answer is yes. And so I know it's hard, and I was disappointed too. I like to watch Khalil Mack. We cover the Raiders. I would like to have watched him for the next 8 years. But the reality is it's about building for the future, and as mind-boggling as it seems right now, Matt, that's what they're trying to do.
Well, here's what you have to do as an irrational fan is try to be rational, right? Look at it from a rational standpoint. You have Khalil Mack. You want to pay him to continue to be a Raider. Here's what you can afford to do without, and it's not about what you can afford to do based on how much money Mark Davis has. That's not what we talk about when we mean the ability to afford a player. It's the ability to afford the player to keep him on your roster without crippling the future of this team, without having the ability to continuously build as you go forward. If you're going to pay Mack as the Raiders personnel or the Raiders front office, if you're going to pay Mack that kind of money, $90 million guaranteed, $25 million a year, if you're going to pay him that kind of money, then you cannot pay anybody else going forward. It's basically Carr and Mack and a bunch of guys that aren't going to command any salary whatsoever, which for the most part aren't guys that are going to help you win games.
Yeah, now if we're in a situation where they can't win and this philosophy backfires on the organization, then those folks out there can say, I told you so. But until that happens, again, it goes back to some of the draft picks. I mean, the conversation we had around the draft. You either trust in what they're doing or you don't. And sometimes you're going to get, I think, situations that puzzle you, but you either trust if you're a fan. And hey, again, I used to be a fan. I grew up in San Diego. I was a Charger fan for my entire life up until about 5 years ago, and it was very liberating that I'm no longer that way because it was just frustration.
That sounds like a really, really sad.
Right.
Well, they might win the AFC West this year. And
yeah,
they're
it doesn't matter to me.
They're the favorite for the AFC West.
So the point, though, is I understand.
Win a ring, guys.
I understand and believe some of the fans out there who say they're done. And that's your choice. I mean, everybody's got a choice. I think the Raider fan for life thing is probably more serious in Raider Nation than any other fan base.
Look, you only get one Khalil Mack. And it really does cancel itself out when you get those 2 first-round draft picks because – Khalil Mack was a 2014 first rounder, and then you got a 2019 and 2020. What are the odds one of those 2 first round picks you're going to get another Khalil Mack?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
At least 2 players who equate to a Khalil Mack.
No, I agree, David. It's true, and I think you just have to. Again, you get the emotional, the feedback from fans, and it's one of those deals where. It just happens. I mean, it's fresh, too. It's a fresh wound. I mean, it just got cut open yesterday, and like a bag of salt was thrown in it.
Khalil Mack is going to the Hall of Fame as a Bear. Let that sink in. That's where frustration lies.
You're not
right
helping,
there.
Matt. You're supposed to help these people.
No. But I mean, I think that's going to be the hardest thing. We know Khalil Mack is going to be a Hall of Fame player. He's that level talent. And he signed a 6-year deal. He only played 4 in Oakland. When it's all said and done, when this guy's numbers are put into the books, his story is finalized, he will go into the Hall of Fame, and unfortunately for Raiders fans, he's going to do that as a Chicago Bear. Yep. I mean, that's just the way it's going to work out, and I think that's the hardest pill to swallow today, 24 hours after it comes out, is that you just lost a Hall of Famer who probably hasn't even hit his prime
But you know what, though, Matt? And I know some people get mad at me for saying this, so you can unleash your hell on me. If I'm a Raider fan, I'd rather have another Lombardi trophy than have Khalil Mack in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and if this is what it takes to get there, then of course, like you said though, if this implodes and they go in the wrong direction,
different story.
Yeah, then all hell's going to break loose as far as the vitriol being thrown at McKenzie and Gruden and anybody else involved. But we keep talking about Gruden spending the last how many years watching guys like Belichick build.
Yep,
he's got the knowledge. Let's let him work and see what happens.
All right, we're going to step aside. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
CBS Sports Radio.
Hi, this is Steve Wisniewski, and you're listening to the Silver and Black today.
All right, you're back here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. We go out again on our TorontoVegasLaw.com newsmaker line, and we bring in now Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Sun, as I always call him, and I will not let up, and that is the hardest working man in the media in Las Vegas because he covers everything. Mick, how you doing this morning, man?
Great. How about yourself?
Doing good. We've obviously had an eventful day and a half with the Raiders and the moves they made yesterday. And of course, you were out. You covered the Beast Mode store opening yesterday. How was dealing with Marshawn?
It was pretty fun, man. He was busting all of our chops when we were interviewing him. But yeah, he gave us a hard time. But he actually opened up a little bit compared to his other interviews. So yeah, he knows it's a business deal with Mac, and he said he just hopes he gets that check. Which I guess while we're talking, they signed him to that. So he got that check.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. You got that on video when you asked him that question, and Marshawn was very businesslike with it, which is actually more of who he is. Most people don't know that he's pretty straightforward guy when you talk to him. Now, Mick, let's get to parking. So this past week, we saw the Raiders present with the county the first initial plan for parking for the new stadium here in Las Vegas. Give everybody kind of the long and short of what it works out to and why maybe it's creating some folks to not be happy about it.
Well, the sheer fact that there's so little spots on site, which, it's always been known, but everyone still gripes about that. There's about 2375 on site spots. The county requires 16,250. So they found 4 satellite lots, which is going to bring up to about 14,650 spots. So they're still going to be short of that 16,250 number. And Sisolak says they're not going to fold on that, so they need to find some additional spots. But, they're going to shuttle people in. It takes 5 to 13 minutes from each of the satellite lots, which, depends on traffic, obviously. But just compared with the other cities, it's kind of in line with them. A lot of them in the urban areas, they're short of parking on site, just around the same amount. Denver is like the only one that has like anything significant of like 6,500, but the rest of those rely on walking or public transportation. And the Raiders are the only one that they're going to have the dedicated shuttle. So that's a little bit in their favor, and it's going to help with some traffic flow around the area too. So although, you don't have all the spots on site like everyone wants, it's not that bad of a deal.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the parking lots being away from the stadium, but my biggest point of contention is the inability really to be able to walk to the stadium from most of these sites, if not all of the sites, because you want to have some kind of foot traffic flow, just for pregame experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the huge tailgate, 15,000 spots in one lot, things like that. But when you get to some of these stadiums around the country where they do have these smaller lots spread out, places for people to just kind of hang out, there's this big kind of steady flow of foot traffic that just adds to that atmosphere. And I think this is really going to take away from that if this is, in fact, the final plan.
Yeah, so with those offsite ones, of course, you're not going to be walking, from like the Orleans or anything to the stadium. But then, there's also, which is not an account for, there's a bunch, there's about 25,000 spots around the area they mentioned, and also all the parking garages across the way from, like all the MGM Resorts ones, the Mandalay Bay, Luxor, Excalibur, and all those. Obviously, they mentioned that there'll be a lot of, out-of-state fans coming in, so they're going to be staying at these hotels. They're going to party, and they're going to make a dedicated bridge to go across, the 15, so that's going to kind of incorporate some of that pedestrian activity. And, it's just, obviously, they don't want them to say, hey, we're going to use your parking garages, but it's going to happen. And, I think that'll help with that pedestrian feeling that you're talking about there.
Yeah, we're talking to Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Sun about the stadium parking plan. And, of course, Mick, this is the initial plan. There will be additions to it. We're going to go to a caller, actually, who's got a question. So we're going to wing it here with you, Mick. Jeff from California, you're on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio. What's your question?
Hi. It's about the limited parking on site.
Okay, go ahead.
What about creating something? I don't know if this is done with any of the other NFL teams. An on-site tailgating permanent setup where this can be either controlled by the Raiders or it can be like almost a suite setup where you would have blocks and you would set this up because they have such limited parking. And you talk about all the shuttling coming in, and I've done this a lot before as far as trying to tailgate and shuttle in. That doesn't work. So is that a possibility? I mean, Las Vegas is innovative. So
yeah, no, Jeff, it's a good question, and Mick, we already know the answer to that, right? It's where the field tray is going to go. Why don't you tell Jeff about that permanent area that the Raiders have already planned?
Yeah, on the south end of the stadium, they have an area where they're gonna house the grass field when it's not in use by the Raiders. So on game day, when it's on the field, that whole area is gonna be opened up, and it's gonna be one large tailgating area. They haven't said anything about specifics about how many people it's gonna fit, but just looking at the rendering, it looks pretty sizable. So that could be one of the major keys to the tailgating experience.
Now, Mick, let's jump.
I mean, that would be a simple way to do it, but how about doing something new and, like I say, innovative as far as something permanent and done in correlation with the Raiders as far as creating something that you could buy spaces or whatever and have that set up?
Yeah, I don't know if
that'd be up to the team, but with the limited space, I think having anything permanent that might just kind of take more from that limited space they have there.
Jeff, thanks for your call. We appreciate it. Appreciate you listening in.
Mick, let me jump to this from a local standpoint now. Let's talk about UNLV games because you've got that tray there with the grass field. That's going to be out in the parking lot during Rebels games because they're playing on the turf field that's already going to be in there. So what kind of game day, setup are they going to have? Any type of permanent setup for college games?
Yeah, that's what I've been wondering too, because they're not going to want to have people tailgating on the grass itself. So obviously that's not going to be there for UNLV. I haven't heard anything specific as far as UNLV game related. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. I reached out to the school and kind of see what they thought about the parking plan, and they said it was too early to comment on it. So they're still keeping hush until it's actually finalized, and then I guess they'll come out and then kind of give their spiel from there.
Yes, we're talking to Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Sun. Now, Mick, when you look at the parking situation, you talked about other cities, and I think and we're gonna debate in the next segment too, as Tommy White joins us to talk about stadium construction progress as well. But if you look at others, I think people in Las Vegas have just been spoiled. I think a lot of the complaints we hear from people about, I'm not going to do this, and not Matt's points, but I mean, just some of the general kind of angst out there around the plan thus far are, I think, number one, people who probably won't go to a game anyway, and number two, it's not realizing or having maybe been to other NFL markets where you have to make other plans that you don't just roll right up like you do at the Thomas and Mack Center and park next to the building and go inside.
Yeah, that's true. It's just any other stadium I've been to, you got to put a little bit of work, or you got to wait. Especially even traffic, like the ones that have some on-site parking. You don't just roll right in. You're in traffic for like an hour at least. So it's just like, obviously, it's not any kind of clear-cut way to like reduce any kind of traffic issues with the stadium. You're having 65,000 people funnel into one area. It's not going to be that easy. So obviously, with this whole the rideshare, they mentioned it's the first one built in the age of the rideshare, so that's going to be a big deal with it too, with the Uber and Lyft. They're going to have dedicated areas to pick up and drop off there. Just the one thing there everyone's kind of worried about is surge pricing, which they do with large events. So it'd be interesting to see how much they increase that price during, before, and after any kind of Raiders or UNLV game.
I think a lot of what you're seeing is local frustration, and you mentioned it, Scott, with people that probably aren't going to go to the game, or a large number of them that aren't going to go to the games. David mentioned it with the Khalil Mack thing in our last segment about what's done is done. It's over. Mack's gone. He's moved on. It's kind of the same situation with the parking here as far as on-site goes. People are still complaining about the on-site parking spaces and the limited number. That's done. It's time to move on from that and focus on these satellite sites, or all the warehouses in that area, things like that, things that can be done going forward. On-site is over and done with, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, the whole public funding aspect as well. Like, everyone still will grab about the $750 million and say, let's put it toward the schools. Well, the money is already accounted for, so it's not going to go anywhere. It's kind of the same situation. And you mentioned the surrounding warehouses and all that. Obviously, before 2020, there's a lot of talk of rezoning stuff and adding some more, retail / food and beverage areas there. So obviously that's going to also play into the tailgating aspect. You can hang out at those bars instead. Pre-game, kind of like any other NFL city, the bars surrounding all their stadiums. And then just speaking with already like a local business owner in the area, the owner of the Crazy Horse 3 said he's going to have some kind of tailgating in there. So obviously that might be the most family-friendly one, but still, that's still a start there.
Yeah, it'll be like a mobile Hooters, I think. But, just to put into perspective, too, I mean, yes, it's not an NFL stadium, but you look at Sam Boyd Stadium, it has 2,300 spaces, okay? Right. And it fits 30,000. I know it's half the number that the Raiders
they average
Stadium.
About 500-600 people.
I know. I'm just saying from an on-site parking. And I just think, Mick, too, that there's going to be other things coming down the line. I'm sure you're here and you probably can't talk about it yet, but there's going to be other things. This is an initial plan. I think people jump to, just like they did with the PSL numbers, they jump to a conclusion, this is it. There's going to be other options, I would imagine, that come up.
Yeah, the team and, the county and everyone's all working together, trying to figure out the best plan. They're not just going to sit on this and be like, this is it. They're going to hear it this week at the zoning meeting, and then they're going to go from there, take those suggestions, and try to get it more fine-tuned ahead of the September 20th Stadium Authority meeting, which I still don't think it'll be a finalized deal there. Even there's still a little bit to work on, but they'll smooth it out. It's still not going to please everybody, just like I said, the public funding and all that stuff. So you can't please everybody. But like you said, those ones that want to find a reason not to go to the game were probably not going to go anyway. So it's just a select few, and I don't think they'll find any kind of issues, filling those seats.
That's right. This has been Mick Akers with the Las Vegas Sun talking to us about the new stadium parking. Mick, thanks for joining us, man. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks again, Mick. Also, you You talk about money and people complaining about the public funding, quote-unquote public funding for the stadium, yet I don't hear those same people complaining about where the marijuana money is for schools.
They're not complaining about the money that went into the convention center building.
No, not either. All right, when we come back, Tommy White from the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board will join us. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 a.m. We continue our stadium focus. Yes, I know everybody's talking about Khalil Mack and roster cuts, but we're focusing on the future a little bit here and talking about Las Vegas and the new stadium. We talked to Mick Akers about parking. Now we welcome Las Vegas Stadium Authority board member and the business manager over at the local 872, the men and women building the stadium, Mr. Tommy White. Tommy, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here.
All right. And Tommy, by the way, go to our Twitter handle. Tommy just showed us his new tattoo on his arm, which is the stadium.
Sick, man.
It's amazing.
First one.
And it has the Al Davis torch in it, which is really, really a cool detail. So make sure you check that out on Twitter. Great picture. Now, Tommy, the stadium. So all of us, we talk about it every week on the show. Matt and I, we kind of get chills every time we drive by it because you just see that thing going up. And you guys and the team over there are just jamming away on this project. Where are we officially as far as a percentage of the stadium being completed? And what do we expect over the next few months?
I think if I said officially, I'd be letting too much out, right? So
okay, give us a round estimate.
We're over 50% of the concrete that's going to get poured there. The workers are working at a fantastic pace. Now it's getting a little cooler now, so you're going to see the workers out there. It's not going to be so much with the heat anymore. So you're going to see by the end of September, you're going to see some structural steel going up, which is actually going to make a nice form. By the end of the year, we will be way up in the air. We're at a much better pace than LA was at this time in the game. So everybody's really happy at where we are today.
And talk about how different this build is when you get to more towards the finishing stages, because you've got that different roof, that translucent material. It's just such a different style than a regular dome stadium or an open air stadium. How much of a problem or is that going to cause any at all?
No, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I mean, this is probably I believe this is the first one done in the United States. They have a couple of these in Europe. It's a cable roof. It's all going to be about the view, and I think doing it with the cable roof, and it's basically a French system. It was a French design. That's probably going to be one of the last things we're going to be doing. We have the cranes that are going to be able to reach that high. The whole thing is I'm hoping that by the time we're starting to put the cables in for that roof, that we're not going to be when it's 110 degrees.
Yeah, that would not be good.
But, that architect's design is fantastic. And, not only is it going to keep the heat out, but it's also going to keep light in, which is just going to make this stadium unbelievable.
Well, and that's the thing, too. We get some folks from outside the market who always say, well, it's going to be like a greenhouse in there. And I try to explain to them how it works so that, no, it's actually going to keep it cooler. The whole point is to make it efficient, right? That building is going to be an efficient build, just like you guys have done with massive projects on the Strip.
Yeah, definitely. I think every way that the Raiders have put this build together with their engineers and their designers, I mean, this is not going to compare to anything else. I mean, we might not be at the most expensive stadium that's out there right now, but we're probably going to have one of the best looking and up with technology and light systems, and I mean, they're probably going to have solar out there. So we're right on board with that.
You mentioned the timetable. It's moving on a lot quicker than what we saw in LA and what we're seeing in LA currently. Have you guys had any kind of unforeseen challenges, maybe you didn't expect, or things pop up that have been a little more difficult than you were ready for?
I think really this time around, and we're building resorts. We've over the past 20 years. We've never really seen a year like this year with the humidity and the rain and the heat, all within a 6-8 week period. I think that was the only thing that we weren't really prepared for because it's never really happened like that.
Is that more physically taxing for your guys than anything? Yeah.
That takes a lot out. I mean, when it's humid out there, you're dripping sweat and constantly drinking down the water and the Gatorades and everything that you can keep, yourself hydrated. But, we handed out these cool neck flaps. I think we gave out something like 1,200 of them. Wow. Well, the whole thing is to keep the workers going, but keep them safe. We don't want guys, falling down on the job, heat stroke, and heat. If you haven't worked in Las Vegas out in the heat, you need to really prepare yourself. And like I always say, if you're going out on Friday drinking and you think you're going to be okay and work on Saturday, it's not going to happen.
No, people here complain about walking to their car with the heat. Imagine doing all that kind of work you're doing on the stadium. Again, we're talking to Tommy White, a member of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board and the business manager over at the local 872 about the stadium progress. Now, Tommy, let's switch gears and talk parking. We heard Mick Akers talk about it. You have seen and been very vocal about folks complaining about this parking plan. And you and I kind of have the same, we talked about this a couple days ago. You and I have the same view of this, and that is that people in Las Vegas have gotten spoiled. And so people complaining how to take a shuttle to a game, it rings a little hollow, and I don't know why it's such a big deal.
Well, I think when everybody looks at NFL, football stadiums or big stadiums, they have this impression of let's go and park, right? Let's drive down and park. First of all, our stadium that we're building, it's basically dead center of Las Vegas. So, if you just use some common sense about getting to this stadium, I haven't really met too many families that are out there saying, I can't wait to put my kids in the car and drive to the stadium, right? It's like everybody that I talk to about parking, when they start telling me there's not going to be enough parking spots. From the very beginning, I was probably the first one to be out there saying, we don't need 16,000 cars leaving a stadium at one time. I learned really fast going to the Golden Knights games. At the beginning, I was parking at the Tropicana, right? It was free. Yeah. Parking at the Tropicana is free. This over a mile walk to the front door of T-Mobile.
Good point.
Right? Yeah. So, but it's not a bad walk.
No.
You're up, you're walking through casinos, you could stop and get something to eat, stuff. And that's what you're going to see at our stadium. You're going to see a lot of people that are not really going to want to be parking there. If I park on the 8th floor at going to a Golden Knights game, it takes me almost 2 hours to get out of the parking lot if you don't leave early enough. Now, I don't think anyone's going to want to go to a Raiders game and leave early.
No. And that's the thing is you keep talking, Scott, about this isn't the finished product. There are more things to come when it comes to not just the parking, but you mentioned the rezoning of some of those warehouse districts around the stadium itself. And that's where Tommy just talked about walking from the Tropicana, which I've done 100 times going to Golden Knights games. That in and of itself is a fun experience because you have all of these people coming throughout the 2 hours or whatever it is before the game.
Yeah.
If you have those kind of areas set up around that stadium, you're going to have the same thing on an escalated scale because you're talking about now 65,000 people versus 18,000 for a Knights game.
Well, and Tommy, you're originally from New York.
Exactly.
Who goes to New York in Times Square and drives in parks, right?
You don't even have cars in New York, man. It's all cabs.
Because you want to walk. There's so many things to do, and Las Vegas is such a unique place that I think it just rings hollow. And the same people are the ones complaining about the traffic it's going to create, but yet they want to drive there. So that part of it's interesting. The other thing is I checked with the RTC on the Golden Knights Express buses all the way from the Northwest. It's a 45-minute ride. People complaining about 5 to 8 minutes on the shuttle. They take buses 40, and they're 89% full is the average I got from the RTC.
Yeah, I took that ride on the because I wanted to experience the ride from with the Golden Knights, out Northwest. It was actually 22 minutes, right? And they take you right to the front door.
Yeah.
Now, you're way out Northwest, and I really believe a lot of fans, they want that tailgating experience. Like you mentioned earlier, the Raiders are setting up that tailgating experience. Everything that the Raiders are doing right now as an organization, they are looking at the Raider experience. Everything is about the Raider experience for the fans. And I believe you're going to have a lot of fans that are just going to want to be at the stadium. They're going to want to, when they leave the stadium, they're not going to want to jump in their car and go. They're going to want to go in their car and walk over to the Strip. That's the best thing about Raiders fans.
I think what. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think what people need to understand, especially those that are up in the Bay Area, is this is going to be different than what you've grown accustomed to in Oakland. This isn't going to be Oakland. This isn't going to be the same type of atmosphere out there. It's going to be a Vegas type of atmosphere. You're going to have a different feel, a different party atmosphere, a different vibe altogether. And while you may love that experience in Oakland, different isn't always bad. It's just going to be different. It's still going to be great.
No, I totally agree. I've been to a couple of tailgating parties out in Oakland, and I really believe after watching the fans in Oakland, they're going to love the experience here. And with the way they're setting up these lots, I'm kind of looking at, that's a temporary fix. Long term, the Raiders are really, really looking for something closer. And all those factories around there, you're going to see that's all going to turn into like little restaurants, shops. A lot of those factories will probably wind up coming down. I know a lot of the factory owners there. They're going to have their factories and their parking lots open for the fans.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more spaces closer to that. Tommy, I want to thank you again for your support, not only of our website, but you're also going to be a supporter here on the show and on Sports Adrenaline. So, Tommy, thanks again for coming in, and we'll have you in again as well to give us updates.
Thanks, guys. Always great to be here.
All right.
Tattoos next level, man.
Oh, man.
I love it.
We're getting such a great response on Twitter right now. We appreciate Tommy coming in, as always. Make sure you keep up to date with what's happening there on silverandblacktoday.com. When we come back, we'll close out the show with a wild card segment, The Audible with Mac Gutierrez, here on Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. in Las Vegas.
CBS Sports Radio.
This is Mark Bedane, president of the Raiders. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
All right, Mark Bedane bringing us back. That's apropos after talking about the stadium with Tommy, and gotta like that. Well, we are back here. Last segment, we're taking this puppy home, which has been just an amazing weekend for Raider fans, whether you look at it as good or bad. And we know we're going to have a press conference later from Jon Gruden and Reggie McKenzie to talk about everything. That should be interesting to watch.
That's must-watch TV right there, man.
There might be some people who are crying, or
you might have media members sitting out there crying and yelling at them, and
it's
going to be like a George W. somebody's going to throw a shoe up there. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think that just there's the opportunity here. You can look at it two ways. I mean, you either accept and move on. And I wrote in a story yesterday morning when I got the news and wrote my opinion that, hey, this was not about the tired narrative of Mark Davis doesn't have the money. Mark Davis is fine with money. His revenue's increasing with the stadium and the move to Las Vegas. This was a conscious choice not to do it.
It makes me laugh every time. It just makes me laugh.
It's hysterical.
People swear this guy's poor.
And so I wrote in that piece, though, that you're going to go through the 7 stages of grief. Right? And it's natural. It's going to happen. And, of course, there was some spelling police. I had said 5 stages in my story because I was writing it so quickly and didn't edit it and didn't have an editor help me with it because I was too busy. But the 7 stages of grief, everybody's going through them with Mac. But the reality is, I don't care what anybody says, Matt. If the Raiders come out on fire this year, let's say they win. I think it's a long shot, but let's say they win that game against the Rams on Monday night. And then they roll that into a couple more wins, and they're 3 or 4-0. People, I'm not saying they're going to forget Khalil Mack because you don't forget a guy like that, but it's going to make the pill easier to swallow.
I'm going to call an audible here. You ready?
Ready. Let's do it.
Here's my 8th level of grief. Damn jerseys, man. God, I'm sick of this. Every time. And I'm wearing my Khalil Mack jersey today. And my sister, so funny we were talking about it, my sister got me this kind of cool grayish color Khalil Mack, one of the overseas sites.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack jersey, just cool. It's something cool to have. Every time I get a jersey for a player, so
they're gone.
Raider Nation, I'm sorry, it's just clearly my fault. I've got McFadden jerseys, he's gone. Woodson jerseys, he's gone. I can't even tell you how many. Randy Moss jersey, gone.
Yeah.
Now I got Khalil Mack. Just so you guys know, I've got a Derek Carr jersey at home.
Oh,
I don't know what that means.
That's not going to happen.
But
you know
I'm
what?
definitely not going to buy a Cooper jersey now.
But I think so. This is a point, and folks were talking about it yesterday in social media, and that is with the way sports are today, you have to really be a fan of the team first and foremost, because if you get too attached to a player, because of the business, because of the money involved, especially in the NFL with salary cap, you can't get too attached, because what happened yesterday is going to happen again at some point. Might be Amari Cooper next year. It's going to happen. Other players are going to come in. They're going to do really well for you. But the reality, the financial situation from a salary cap perspective is you can't afford them long term.
Well, here's the thing. As fans, you fall in love with the players because they do such great things. You know, they win you a Super Bowl, or they throw for 4,500 yards. They get you 16 sacks, whatever it is. You fall in love with these players. But the reason you fall in love with these players is because they play for your team. That's what it all comes down to. You're rooting for the silver and black. That's what you're cheering for every single Sunday. Yeah, you love Mack because he's a great player, but now he's a Bear. You're not going to root for him anymore. If you go, you know what, I hope he has a great career and I want to see him go into the Hall of Fame. Of course, he was a Raider, but you don't want to see the Bears have success. You're not going to cheer for him on Sundays because he got 10 sacks. You don't want to see that. You want to see your team do well. That's what this knee-jerk reaction of fans where I'm done with this team and I'm not a fan anymore and I'm burning this jersey and that jersey and whatever else. Why? Were you a fan of the Raiders in 2013 when Khalil Mack was playing at UConn or at Buffalo? Yeah, you were. So why does your fandom stop the day that he's no longer a Raider?
Yeah, it's interesting with fandom these days because it's changed. You know, when I was a kid, you expected a guy to be with a team for at least most of their career. Maybe towards the end, they got let go because they had reached their apex and they were kind of on the downward slide, so they'd catch on with somebody for a couple last paydays. But things have changed. Yeah. And when you look at the Raiders, I think some of this, it's hard to accept, and I get it, and I feel for them in a little way, and that is it's also about the future. The Raiders are focused on the future. Now, a lot of people criticizing Gruden for saying, hey, we want to win while we're in Oakland. I have no doubt that he does. But some of these moves, they also have to think about the future. You can't screw yourself on the salary cap now so that in 3 years when you get to Las Vegas, you're playing in your new stadium, you got no money to pay anybody and you're a 2-14 team.
Yeah, you don't want to hamstring yourself. Right. You don't want to be stuck in cap hell, and that's where they were. When Reggie McKenzie took over the team, this team was a disaster as far as the cap goes. They had just traded away 2 first-round picks to bring in Carson Palmer, who spent all of, a season and a half as a Raider. It was an absolute mess. And look, I don't like the fact that Khalil Mack is not a Raider anymore because he's such a great player.
Nobody does.
He's fun to watch, his energy, the strip sacks to end games, the pick six against Cam Newton, that kind of stuff was great. And he just seemed to fit that Raider mystique. But he's a Bear now. You move on.
Move on.
You don't want to see it, but you move on. This team will build. They're not going to get a Khalil Mack in the draft with these picks, but they're going to build. Jon Gruden is going about it in a different way than what we saw Al Davis do, than what we've seen over the last few years. It's going to be a different type of build. You just got to get on board and hold on.
Right, and some will look at this as me kissing the backside of the organization, but I don't care because I think it's true, and that is when it comes to leadership, I don't care what you're leading. I don't care if you manage a restaurant, you manage a sanitation operation, you're a lawyer. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are, what business you're in. If you're a leader, you got to make tough decisions. You get paid to make tough decisions, and guess what? A lot of times they aren't popular, and people don't like them. And you're going to have an echo chamber of people who pile on, Mark Davis this, Mark Bedane that, Reggie McKenzie this, Jon Gruden's a jerk, all this kind of stuff.
Good catch.
Yeah, I know. I almost went with the D word.
Man.
He had the dump button.
Colin wasn't ready. Colin wasn't ready.
But you know what? The bottom line is he made the decision. Now, how that decision nets out, we all make decisions. I've led teams, and I've made bad decisions. I didn't learn they were bad until a year later, and I had to pay the price, right?
Sometimes, man, hindsight's 20/20, right?
It is. But at the same time, leaders, you have to trust either in them leading your organization in this matter. If you're a fan of the Raiders, you either trust in Jon Gruden and Reggie McKenzie and Mark Davis, or you don't. So you jump on or you jump off. It's an easy equation.
Yeah, it is. And, like I said, I'm going to stop buying jerseys because here we go. I'm just going to go get my own name on the
Bo
back.
Jackson.
I have a Bo Jackson. I've got Bo. I've got Jerry Rice. I've got Tim Brown.
You got to get a Villapiano.
I've got
jersey.
some old. Yeah, I got. You know what? I do got to get a.
That's a good.
That's a great one. But I mean, it's you're a fan of the team. You buy the jerseys of these players.
You don't have a Randy Moss jersey, do you?
I do have a Randy Moss jersey. Yeah, of course, man. Are you kidding me?
I know.
That was huge when we got Moss. But
that's funny.
I mean, you're a fan of the team. I don't have a LaDainian Tomlinson jersey.
No.
I was a big fan of LaDainian Tomlinson's ability as a running back. He killed the Raiders every time he played the Raiders.
He did.
And he's a Hall of Famer. He is a great running back, and I respected his ability. But I didn't go out and buy a Chargers jersey because I'm not a fan of the Chargers. You're Raiders fans. Be Raiders fans. The Raiders are still there. They did not leave. They are still the Raiders.
I went through a 12-step program to stop being a Charger fan. About 5 years ago. It was
Step
tough.
number 12 was start silver and black today.
That's right. All right, I want to thank our guest in studio, Mr. Tommy White from the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board and the Local 872, Michael Lombardi, Mick Akers also. And by the way, Michael Lombardi, just one of the great minds in football.
Yeah,
it was
man.
great to have him on as well. We also had on Vinny Bonsignore from that Athletic Los Angeles, who's always somebody that we have on and enjoy. He's got some great insight, especially the Aaron Donald thing with Mac. That was really good insight.
Well, I mean, how long we've been saying it for the last 2 months now. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
People tried to say they weren't connected. Obviously,
I'm going to pull the audio because you were saying it over and over. You're saying it on Sports Adrenaline as well.
Yeah.
And getting some flack for that, too. But I want to thank him. Also, Gilbert Manzano from the Las Vegas Review-Journal was on to give us his views of the 53 month. It was a crazy day. It was really busy. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. Now, next week, we're on from 9 to 11. There's a special programming in the morning. So we are out. Oh, no, we're still here. Anyway, we're going to go. We'll see you next week at 9 o'clock. This is Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 11:40 a.m.
Ready, set, let's